Hi, I'm Brent Lyles with Chicken Hill Solutions and NYOS Charter School. I'm back with the 5th video in our 6-part series on grants and grant writing. Now, you may remember our 4-step process. Step 1 was putting together that great plan for the program. Step 2 was finding those grant opportunities that are a really good fit for your program plans. Step 3 is writing the application itself. And then Step 4 is follow-up, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, either you'll get rejected or you'll get accepted for that grant. Now, let's take that rejection scenario first. And it's a bummer, believe me, especially if you thought it was a really good fit and you were really hoping for it. Even when you're feeling bad about it, make sure that you're asking for some follow-up. It can be super valuable to hear what they have to say about your application. It doesn't have to be super complicated. I'm actually going to read you an email that I wrote to a foundation just the other day when I didn't get accepted for the grant. Thanks so much for considering this grant application, right? You want to say thank you to start with. We'll look forward to reapplying, and I was wondering if you might be able to provide feedback or suggestions for next time. We want to make sure that we are aligning as closely as possible with the XYZ Foundation's current priorities. And we'd love to learn from this experience if possible. You've already done your research and you thought it was a really good fit, right? Why didn't it get funded? Often what you're going to get back initially is just a form letter. But if you can have that follow-up conversation and start a little bit of engagement there, that can go a long way. Sometimes they'll say, well, really what we're interested in is this thing over here. That's great feedback because then you know what, this wasn't a good fit after all. Other times they might say to you, no, really, we did like your application and we just didn't have enough money to go around. Please reapply. Either way, that is super helpful information to get back. So let's say you did get the grant. Yay, it's super exciting when you get a grant. My first recommendation, as with the application, is always follow the directions. Often you will have some sort of reporting requirements for that grant, almost always. Read them. Find out what the details are. What are the deadlines? What are the different pieces that have to be part of that reporting? At your organization, who is going to be responsible for those different pieces? Make yourself a calendar for it and put it on your schedule. Make sure that you're hitting all of those benchmarks. Now, sometimes the reporting schedule is sort of lax, right? It's a reporting requirements where they don't actually require that much. Like they might just say, you've got a year, just send us a letter at the end of the year and let us know how it went. Don't do just that. Do more. Think of it. Put yourself in their shoes. You're given, let's say it's a $10,000 grant. You're giving away $10,000. You want to know that that money is going to good use and that it's having an impact and that it's helping kids or whatever. If you don't hear from that grantee for a whole year, you're kind of left wondering what's going on. So if you're that grantee, send them some reports along the way. Send them some photos. Let them know how it's going. If you were in their shoes, that's what you'd want. You'd want some engagement and just kind of keep that in mind as you are putting together your reporting plan. Often it may be really helpful to do more than what they're asking for. Another recommendation I have is to be honest about what went well and what didn't. Often there's a little bit of a tendency to kind of gloss over the bad stuff. But there's a couple reasons why you want to make sure that you are being as honest as possible. One is that as you move forward in your relationship with this grantor and you hope you get another grant and another grant after that, right? You want to be realistic in what expectations you can set for yourself. And if those initial expectations were a little bit too high, providing that feedback to the grantor and say, well, we were hoping to serve 100 kids. We were really only able to serve 75. You'll know that next time 75 is the much more realistic target, right? Another thing is that for grantors, sometimes because they are removed from the direct service work, they don't really know that much about what the challenges are. So if you can tell them something like, well, we thought it was going to be really easy to recruit kids for this program, but it turned out that it was really hard to find kids who were going to be interested in it and available to participate. That's super helpful feedback for a grantor to know because that way they can get a more clear and kind of authentic sense of what's going on in the community. All right. My last thought about reporting and the follow-up after you get a grant is to always keep in mind that you are building that relationship. It's not just about, hey, you gave us some money, here's how we spent it. It really is about trying to make sure that you are engaging that funder with what you're doing so that you kind of build it up as a partnership, and that in future years they'll be that much more likely to refund you and come back with more money, and maybe even they'll increase the size of the grant. That's the dream, right? All right, well, that concludes our 4-step process. The very last video in this series is going to be tips and tricks that I have for you as you decide to apply for some grants. See you then.